Guys, it is time for our next guest of the evening. We've got Miss Shana here in the house. How are you doing, Shana?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, man. And I'm looking, and we're actually like early. I don't know how I did that. That's awesome. We're like 4 minutes. Look at us rocking and rolling. Yes.
Very nice.
I'm really excited to have you on here, Shana. You know, it was just sort of like all this stuff kind of fell together over the last few weeks. Whenever I started, doing what I could to help you out with Amy and everything over the last few months, I was talking to our board about it, about the experience, you know, that we were going through, and one of the people on our board is an oncology nurse, Josie, who actually worked with Dr. O for many years, and she let me know about Stephanie, the director of palliative care, and this was something I never even had heard of before. And what's interesting is on the break, you and I were just talking about the fact that, you know, Amy didn't have a palliative care team, yet she filled in all the blanks and had everything so planned out so well. So we're going to definitely get into that. But before we get into that, I promised you that the way we were going to start this conversation is I always like to try to start at the beginning. And so the first thing I want to do, Shana, is let everybody know, how did you get involved as the primary caregiver for Amy?
Pretty much, I just saw a need and stepped up. I am kind of a natural caregiver by nature. So when I realized that she didn't have someone who was able to stay with her after chemotherapy, and I realized how sick she was getting, I just kind of saw a need and stepped into it, and it grew from there into a whole lot more.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, I watched it. We've talked about it a million times about the progression as far as from where I was sitting and what I saw was happening and how it took me forever to even realize there was a need. But even before that, you guys had been friends for many years. How many years were you friends before Amy got diagnosed with breast cancer?
I met her in 2011. She was originally diagnosed in, I believe, 2018 or early 2019.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And just for everybody who's watching's sake, Shana and I are both friends with Amy. Amy and I met back in the 90s. We had a mutual friend. And so essentially, I would go to parties with this friend of mine, and she was always there because she was a friend of my friend. And so I saw her quite a lot. And then with Facebook, reconnected, ended up having a mutual friend that was on a roller derby team, and then just sort of reconnected. But to be quite honest with you, I wasn't ever like really close friends with Amy. Um, I knew her through other folks. But honestly, the last, couple of years of her life was the most I ever spent with her. And it was very specific. When she got sick, she called me because of breast cancer. Stick it. And so we talked a lot
Mhm.
about breast cancer specifically. So had you ever, Shayna, had cared for somebody who had gone through cancer before like this?
No, this was my first experience.
Yeah, and I mean, just coming from the side of being a breast cancer patient, that can be a lot to deal with, even in my condition, which was nothing like Amy's. There's only so much you know about what chemo does to a person until you're close with them. What would you say
Right.
were some of your biggest surprises? Because, like I talked about it often, going through breast cancer, there were a lot of things that happened to me that people didn't talk about, like neuropathy, or like when you lose your hair, it's not just on your head; you lose it like everywhere, like in your nose.
Right.
It's like everywhere. Things like that.
Right.
What were some of the biggest surprises for you?
Um, Definitely just overall how weak it could make her, because Amy was so strong and so independent on a regular basis that the first weekend that I came and I spent an entire weekend after a chemo treatment with her, I was really surprised at how tired she was, at how much she slept, at how hard it was for her to get out of bed, how hard it was for her to make it to the kitchen to get a bottle of water. And, I kind of said, hey, she really ought to have somebody here to help her with this. So, you know, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's true, that's, like, one of the biggest things is that you're just really stinking tired. I mean, you're just
Mhm.
wore out. So at what stage, in her diagnosis, in her journey, was she having that kind of weakness? Was it just when she was diagnosed with stage 3 and it was just the chemo was causing her to be that weak at that time?
It it started out that way. I can't remember the proper name of the chemo, but it was the Red Devil. When
Yeah,
she was
it's
on that
Adrian
chemo.
Adriamycin is what that one was. Sorry, just popping in, and everybody caught me taking a sip of my, Starbucks when I did that to myself. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just know she called it the Red Devil. At that point, when she was on that particular chemo, I wasn't present as much because I had just gone through a house fire myself. So her and I both were having major life changes. And a few months later, we both, you know, we were still trying to support each other from a distance. And when she needed to have her mastectomy done, her double mastectomy, I realized that she was going to be at the hospital by herself. And I said, "Oh no, I can't have that. Like, if that was me, I would not want to be there by myself." So I drove up to Dallas and I stayed in the hospital with her, went home and took care of her. And really, that's where the journey started for me. That's when I really got involved with her and her treatment and, just trying to see how I could ease her life in whatever ways possible.
And that's an important note too that many people probably don't realize that have heard about you helping care for Amy is that you live 3 hours away and you made this,
Yes.
huge trek up regularly. I know that you would at minimum stay there pretty much every weekend. You were there very often. And
Yes.
so at what time did you start trying to coordinate her care when you couldn't be there, and what steps did you take to do that? I mean, I know them, but no one else does here.
Right. I was pretty much on my own um, up until this past summer when I was taking a trip out of state with my family. And at that point, I realized, oh man, I need to find some people who can step in and help in my absence because, there's things that I know she needs to have. And so I started looking for people that I could ask, hey, can you go spend a weekend or can you even just stop in for, a couple of hours on this night? And I started trying to arrange people to take care of things for that month that I was going to be gone. I think a lot of people were just afraid because it is kind of a scary thing, especially when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have no formal training. What if I don't know what to do? But the biggest thing for Amy was just to have someone there with her. It wasn't necessarily the things we were doing for her, it was the presence of another person that really comforted her and made her feel like she was still loved and important, even though she was going through this really terrible, hard thing.
No, Shayna, it was one of the things that I talk about a lot, even when I was going through breast cancer, was that I was energized by having people around. Because when you're left alone, you kind of have all these thoughts that just start mulling around, and it's not a safe place. It can get to be a very dark place. And so having people around
Definitely.
does make a huge difference. But, and I'm gonna come in a lot from my angle from, you know, seeing what you did and then how I viewed it coming from my angle of it. And, I know one of the things that you did, I'm not sure how far in advance you did it, but you started preparing a lot of paperwork probably alongside Amy with regard to her care. So like, these checklists that you guys came up with, because the simple fact of the matter was, yeah, people were scared to come over because they thought they might need training. I was one of those people. The first time I went over to Amy's, I was like, "Oh my god, Shayna, how can I reach you? Am I gonna like if I get there? Can I ask you? Like, I don't know." And like, but it was stuff like helping care for her house because Amy had things that she needed done daily. She had 4 lizards, 2 cats, and a dog. And she wanted them with her. She didn't want to give those animals up until that was all that was left kind of thing. She wanted those
Right.
animals with her till she died, and she deserves that. She deserves that. And so we, you know, to care for those animals, we found ways to care for them, even if it meant, bringing wives over and things like that to do it. But I
And
mean,
gloves to feed
and
lizards
gloves,
with.
yeah, yeah, and to picking through, these super worms or whatever they were called. But like
Yep.
seriously, like when somebody is in that position, you just realize, hey, this isn't like something I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. They need this now, and this is something that I can do to make them happy in the final stage of their life. The final stage of their life, and that's the thing is I people don't think of it like that, about what a privilege it is to be there for someone in the final stage of their lives and to do what you can to make them happy. I'm jumping all over the place, but back to the list. So you had this wonderful checklist you and Amy put together of all the things, the trash, the dishes, all these different things. This is great. Here's the morning chores, here's the afternoon chores, here's the evening chores,
Yep.
you know, and some of them, Shayna and I have even talked about some of them were like, "Oh God, you have to, this is like, like there was an area that she, was worried about the dog getting into. So you had to spray this vinegar water. And,
Yes.
that would have been an easy thing just to go, screw it, I'm not going to do it or whatever.
Yep.
I don't want to mess with that. But why the hell not? It's what Amy wants. It gives her control over parts of her life when she
Mhm.
feels like she doesn't have much control, I'm sure. And
For her,
I
it was
was
peace of mind.
yeah, exactly, and why would you not wanna give that to her? And so I went in there with my happy ass and I sprayed that, water vinegar every time I was there, and I was happy to do it, like, seriously, I know it sounds crazy, but when you're in that position, you wanna do anything that you can to give that person peace of mind, anything you can to make them smile, anything to make them happy through these kinda days, but that checklist was amazing. You also had this great, book that you made, and it said something like for guests or something, and it would tell some of the stuff that you had in there, it was awesome.
So I had put together a book of basically it was a how to take care of Amy, her house, and her animals. It was foods that she likes so that when she wasn't feeling hungry, you could make suggestions to her from a list of things that we knew were stuff that she would eat at some point because you never knew what the chemo would allow her to eat. The taste change, the stomach upset. There's so many pieces to that. Another part was that she was just very particular in the way she did some things. There was a very certain way she liked the laundry done. Well, that's something I knew, but when I unexpectedly couldn't make it up there for a weekend and someone else was trying to help, it was, oh my goodness, what do I do? There's, four different soaps up here. What do you use on what? And so I thought, hey, it would be a lot simpler if I just made a list and put it into writing for people. And I also made sure to include my own information and to let people know that I was available all the time. You can literally text me anytime. And you had experience with that. As you saw, I always responded when you would message me to say, is this how I do this? Where do I find this thing or where does this go? Um, I was trying to make it a little less scary for people. Personally, I'm a person that likes to have directions. I want the ABC 1, 2, 3 sheet. And I'm very good at doing things if I have that accessible to me. And so I just kind of went off of what I would have wanted if I was a person coming into the situation for the first time. Are you there?
Oh, I'm sitting here talking to myself, sorry, I was on mute because I coughed a second ago. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can
Sorry
now.
about that.
Sorry, it just got quiet and I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait a second
Yeah, you
for
should you should have seen what it looked like to the rest of the world because 'cause I'm on the screen talking and no words are coming out. Okay. So, one of the things that I thought was really cool was that, it was almost like an Amy's user manual is what I said a second ago. And so it was very helpful, but, like, you had stuff in there about, like, what do you do if XYZ happens? And one of the things was don't call 911. So talk a little bit about that situation and how you guys came to determine what to do under those circumstances.
So, particularly if you're taking care of somebody who has cancer, there is a completely different set of rules that apply to a cancer patient versus just a regular person. A normal person can run a temperature of 101 or 102 before you really have to worry about it. You take them to the nearest ER, urgent care, wherever. With a cancer patient, you can't do that because they already have compromised immune systems. It's very important that you follow a very specific set of rules. And so we wanted to make sure that those rules were easy and accessible to anyone. And so we pretty much just took the information that we were given from the hospital and then added that into the sheet. We included the number to one of the nurses that's on Dr. O'Shaughnessy's team, since that's who was taking care of Amy. So, if Amy is running a fever for more than an hour, call this number. Don't call 911, call the nurse. If you have to take Amy to the ER, you take her to the cancer ER. Again, you do not call 911 because they will take her to the nearest ER, which likely will kill her because she has a compromised immune system. And so it's just, there's a lot of extra little things that you have to take into consideration that people just wouldn't know about. I wouldn't have known had I not started going to some of the appointments with Amy and made a point to ask her, okay, so what happens if, like how long is it okay for you to not eat? How long is it okay for you to not be able to hold down liquids? What are the standards for this? Because I'm a person that feels better when I'm informed. I truly believe knowledge is power. And so I tried to provide that knowledge to anybody else who was going to be in the situation of caring for her, whether it was on a regular basis or just a friend who stopped by and Amy happened to be having a bad day. I wanted to make absolutely certain that we were doing the right things to help her in the best way possible.
And that little notebook that you created was so helpful. Like I said, the first day I went in, I saw it. It was plain as day right there in front of me. I opened it up. I sat down and read it. Like I said, it was like a studying, to make sure I was gonna be prepared because yeah, it was scary and you wanted to make sure that you were doing everything that she wanted. And it's funny because you're talking about her eating and I remember one of the things that you told me was you can't make her eat. Don't make her eat. If she doesn't want to eat, don't make her eat. And, I
Yep.
think that that's something that, when talking to Stephanie earlier and you start kind of laying out, what do you want? What do you not want? I think that's one
Mhm.
of the things you can put on the list. I don't want somebody to force me to eat. And
Yep.
don't force this person to eat. You know what I mean?
And
And
that's exactly why I added it on the list, because
yeah.
she had had somebody who'd come to take care of her and they were just adamant that she needed to eat, which only made her end up feeling worse in the long run because her stomach wasn't ready for it. And so I was like, okay, well, you know what? If she's getting enough fluids, then maybe it's not that important if she eats. So let's focus on make sure she has a glass of water, make sure she has a glass of Gatorade within reach, check on them often. Crushed ice, not cubed, because that was one of her little
Yes,
oddities that she
yes.
just she
Sonic
didn't like
ice.
cubed ice.
Sonic ice was
Yeah.
the bomb. I mean, I think she has a full bag. I brought it Thursday before she passed away. She has a full bag in there
Yes.
because, I mean, let's all admit it, Sonic Ice is the best, but yeah, it's stuff like that, like, doing all
Yeah.
those little things, Shayna, I never told you this, but, when my aunt, was, you know, it was near her time and she had pulmonary fibrosis, and I don't know, it just something clicked in my head that, this was a very important time, and whenever I'm around her, I'm gonna do whatever I can do to make her as happy as she can be at that moment in time. At the time, she was in the hospital, on a ventilator and, miserable, and I figured out I started rubbing her feet one day, and so she just loved it, and her eyes would just smile, and so every time I would go, I would bring one of those little massager things, little, has batteries, like, little massager for her feet and some
Mhm.
lotion, and I would rub her feet, and that was just the one thing I would do, and it just sort of it was just a point in my life where I realized how important that time is in somebody's life, and so all of these things that you're mentioning, all of the stuff that you did, all of those things, you know, gave Amy the best moments in her life that she could ever ask for at the most important time. I mean, it's just like I've been telling everybody that even now, Shayna, you're doing stuff to make sure that all of her wishes are carried through and you're adamant about it. You're so freaking fabulous, I just have to tell you. You are. It's
A
just
big
really
part of
amazing.
that is just being willing to have the conversation. It's a hard conversation. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, the majority of people do not want to sit down and have a conversation with you about, okay, well, when I'm dying, this is what I want you to do. Um, I have spent over 20 years as a military spouse. So for me, every time my spouse deployed, I was facing the fact that this may be the last time I ever saw them. So for me, um, talking about death wasn't such a big deal because it's a thing that happened. There's a lot of people that were lost that I knew personally. And so when Amy had expressed her frustration that she wanted to have these conversations, but nobody, oh, you're going to get better, it'll be fine, you're going to get cured, you're going to find a miracle, whatever. The positivity is a good thing, but it can be toxic. And when it comes down to it, I think from her standpoint, as a person who had a terminal illness, because there is no cure for metastatic triple negative breast cancer, um, for her, it was very important to be able to have that conversation with someone, to be able to talk about death, what she was afraid of, what she wanted, what she didn't want. And I was willing to have those conversations. I was willing to listen to her and be frank with her. And I told her, I love you and I don't want to lose you. And I'm going to keep praying for your miracle. I'm not giving up yet. But in the meantime, I am realistic. So, okay, you want to do the planning? Let's do this. And so we started making notes on different things that she did or didn't want. And then she found this awesome book that I believe she ordered on Amazon, which was the I'm sorry for your loss, it's me book. And that book includes pretty much everything you need to plan the end of life. And it goes into great detail. And we did not have enough time to get all the way through the book, but the portion of it that we did manage to work through has been so helpful to me in being able to make sure that her wishes were honored when it did come down to her last days. It's important to me to make sure that her wishes are honored with the way that she wants things to go, now after she's gone. I know what she wants because we had the conversations, and I'm here to make sure that she gets what she wants. She was important to me and her wishes are important to me. And so that's the focus for me.
I was, trying to find that book on Amazon real quick, and if I do, I'll pop it into the comments for everybody to see that because I think that
Awesome.
that was a really great book too. I
Yes,
mean,
I
the
plan to order one.
yeah, and the day that, you mentioned it to me and you're like, "Hey, I need to know where the lizards are supposed to go," or whatever it was, and
Yep,
because we were starting to think, "Hey, we have a lot more we have to contend with now, we might wanna try to see if we can go ahead and rehome the lizards," but
yep.
everything came so fast that they were able to stay there with her until the end there. I don't wanna
Yep.
miss this, so Stephanie, who was on the broadcast earlier, had a great question, and I think that this will provide some insight to a lot of people watching. She asked, "What do you think every caregiver should know?"
End of life wishes. Um, I think every caregiver needs to have the conversation with their loved one or patient, whichever the case may be, about what it is that they want. Like Amy was very specific that she wanted to be at home. She did not want to be in a hospital. She wanted to be in her own bed, not a hospital bed. There was a list of very specific things that, she had let me know that this is the way I want it. And I felt really privileged to be able to provide for her the environment that she wanted. It was very quiet, it was very peaceful. She was at home, she was surrounded by her loved ones, her pets were in the house, she had everything the way that she wanted. And that's what was important to me. And I'm happy I could give her that, even though I miss her.
Okay. Um,
Sorry.
no, I love you, man. No, and it's like I was telling Stephanie earlier, you know, I didn't know it was possible to, I mean, essentially plan out your death and have it go exactly like you want. And Amy really did that, y'all. And I think
Yeah.
this is a super important message for everyone to hear because it's a hard conversation to have, just like I mentioned to Stephanie. I haven't done any of this stuff. I haven't even had done a will of any kind. And when I first got diagnosed with breast cancer, I was like, I got to do a will, and I ordered the software. Like I ordered the software, and it's still sitting at the house, and I haven't done anything with it. And after seeing how gracefully Amy handled everything and how much it helped her and everyone, because when I think about it, I'm like, oh well, that's just helping everybody. What do I care? I'm going to be dead. That's literally what I think, which is stupid.
It's
Like,
not stupid, it's
and
normal.
it's like in my mind, well, the whole, everything ends. So if it ends for me, why does it matter to everybody? It's crazy mixed up thinking. But
On that note, go with a living trust, not a will,
yeah,
because
I
then
chew. That's right. You mentioned that. Yeah, yeah,
things can happen at a slower speed. With a will, you have a particular time limit with the state to get everything done. So there is no time to grieve. 10 days is not very long to do all of the things that need to happen.
that's
I
right.
am super, super fortunate that Amy chose to do a living trust instead, because there's not a time limit on getting things done. I can make things happen as I am ready, as her family is ready. We don't have to try and rush through this whole process while we're still trying to process the fact that she's not with us. So that is a definite recommendation that I would make to people, is to look it up, do your research, talk to your attorney, and definitely I would go with a living trust, because that allows you to make changes as you go, um, but it avoids probate and it gets rid of that time limit. And for me, that has been really helpful, and that took a lot of the stress off, to know that I can actually take a minute to sit and breathe and try to process, and then tackle things one piece at a time as I feel capable.
Yeah, that is a really great point to bring up. I'm glad you mentioned that. I know we talked about it yesterday, and you told me, and I was like, I need to remember to ask about this. So I'm glad that you went into that kind of detail. Some of the stuff though, that Amy thought about was just really amazing. Like some of the details. Is there anything that you don't feel like we should discuss or want to discuss or anything like that? Like I know some of the things that she was like, she didn't want to die alone. She didn't want
Mhm.
to die in a hospital. She wanted her
Yep.
animals around. All those things happen. Um, you know, I'm just gonna say it. I don't think she would care. She said she didn't want to wear a diaper. She didn't
That's
want to ever.
exactly what I was sitting here thinking. It was
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
last things that she told me. She looked over at me from the couch and she said, "Shana, I don't want to wear a diaper." And I said, "Okay, honey, you won't." And she did not. So, you know,
Well, and like I said, and
and
and you told me that it all worked out pretty seamlessly with that regard too, that she was able to get up and go to the restroom the day before or something, and she
yep,
never even really had a need. And I mean,
yep,
that's miraculous. Like she planned out those kind of details. It was just it's like
yeah.
I keep thinking of different things are flying through my head, but anything that you want to mention that you think would be
Well,
helpful. I
and
mean,
like the fact that she didn't want people to say that she had lost the battle to cancer. She wants us to say that she won her race. And to a lot of people, the way that it's worded may not make a difference. But I correct people because it's what Amy wanted. Amy doesn't want us to say that she lost. She wants us to say that she finished her race. She had a long, long marathon. And when she finally crossed the finish line, she got to do it peacefully, just the way that she wanted. And, I can only hope that someday when I die, hopefully a long, long time from now, that it's as peaceful and as calm as it was for her, because there was no pain, there was no machines, there was no noise, there was no hospital. It was quiet, surrounded by people that she loved. And the hospice nurse kept reminding us, the hearing is the last thing to go. Talk to her, she can hear you. And so as people would come to visit, I would ask them to tell me, how did you meet Amy and what is your favorite memory of her? That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to know. I don't want to talk about how long she's been sick or all the places that it's spread or anything like that. I want you to tell me how you met her and a favorite memory. those are the things we want to hold on to, because Amy doesn't want us to remember her as we may have last saw her, depending on when you got to visit. She wants us to remember the real her, which was roller derby and skating and her long red pigtails that she got her nickname Pippi from, traveling. She got to go and see so much of the world. And I think that Amy really had it right, because it's not about the material stuff, it's about the experiences. I really wish I had had more time with her so that she could have told me more of her traveling stories, because she had some really, really fun ones. And I'm very fortunate that I got to spend as much time with her as I did, because I know not everybody had the opportunity.
I want to mention too, you mentioned her hospice nurse. She even picked her out. She was
She did.
a friend of hers, and it was so cool. Like, I'm just telling you guys, I've never seen anything so well planned out as this was. You know, Shayna and Amy already knew who Amy wanted
Mhm.
to be there for hospice care. It was a friend of hers, and Shayna called her, and she was there in 30 minutes. I mean,
Yep.
sh
Yep.
she was that was sh it was planned. She was ready to do that, job, and she was there, and I remember the Tuesday morning when she passed away, and I came by, and she was the hospice nurse was laying at her feet. She didn't leave her side, man, guys. She was laying at Amy's feet, with Amy's feet just essentially touching her head. She was
Yep.
there, and, it was just so beautifully orchestrated, every aspect of it. Um, I wanted
They
to
made sure that there was always somebody with her. She
yeah,
didn't want to die alone, so there was always at least one person with her. Usually there were two of us, but or more, depending. But that was her main wish. I told her I would be there, and I was there. So
and Amy or Shayna, you were going through surgery and all kinds of havoc yourself, and, her steepest decline happened those last 2 weeks, which just happened to
yeah,
coincide with your surgery, and, I know I'm skipping a lot of things that happened up to this point, but, when Shayna said she was having surgery well, actually, let me back up some because I do wanna touch on the whole hair part. I have so many things to cover here because I also need to get back to, something from Stephanie. Let me just make it here. Don't forget anything. So real fast, I'm gonna go back to the conversation about the living will. Stephanie just wanted
mhm,
me to make sure to clarify. She says a living will, and then in parentheses, directive to physicians is a medical document. The last will and testament is a document to navigate assets. So when she
correct.
mentioned a living will, she was talking about the directive to the physicians. And then when we were talking about
And
a trust and those other things, that was something different. That was more of like a having to do with, like, her assets and things, right?
right, yes, but she did have the advanced directive, so it was already listed in there that she didn't want to be kept alive by machines, that if there was not a hope of curing her, that she didn't want to just linger on. And it was definitely a good thing that that was already in place, because for her, it happened so quickly. It was from a Friday doctor's appointment, and on Tuesday, she finished the race. It was that fast. There was no time. Probably one of the shortest hospice stays anyone's ever had. We got her in hospice Monday evening, and she had passed on Tuesday evening, you know,
Yep.
um, which honestly I think is fortunate for her, because at that point, she got to have a really good day on Monday. The hospice nurse had told me that that's what they kind of call the rally before the crash. That generally patients will have one really good day where they have a lot of energy, and then they a lot of times will go to sleep or just kind of fade away. And that's pretty much what happened. And I think that was great, because the people who were able to come and see Amy got to interact with her, and Amy got to feel all of that love. And I really feel like that was a really important part of her being able to have such a peaceful passing is because she knew that she was loved. The people that loved her came to see her and to tell her and to show her that, hey, we are here for you, you know, up until the smallest things like the sonic ice that she wanted, you know, those little things matter. It makes a difference.
Yeah, totally. Um, the part I wanted to jump back to, and I've broken my own rules because I'm such a chronological order kind of person, but there's so much to touch on with this, and I know that we're not going to be able to cover every little thing that I want to cover, but I wanted to kind of give my vantage point of everything that happened with Amy. So you guys know I've mentioned Amy a lot. I've had her on the Beat broadcast. I've had her on the triple negative breast cancer podcast a couple of times. I think the first year she was on might have been 2019, and so I knew she had breast cancer, and I remember the day when she texted me and said that it came back and it was metastatic, and the whole falling on the floor and crying and just wanting to do whatever I could to help her, and that's when I recommended seeing if she was eligible for Dr. O'Shaughnessy's trials over at Baylor Salmon Cancer Center, and she was eligible, and she did get into it, and she did have some success from it, but
Mhm.
we knew that there was a good chance that you know it it may not help. It was kind of like
Yeah.
all that was really left. And so Shayna created this Facebook group, as you mentioned. There was a Pippi's Army, her nickname from roller derby, Pippi Balmstocking. Um,
Yeah.
so she created this Pippi's Army, like a Facebook group where we could get updates on Amy and if she needed things and things like that. And then whenever Shayna was trying to kind of put together a team of caregivers, people to come over to help in some way, she created Pippi's Local Helpers group on Facebook.
Mhm.
And then you started making events, pick up from chemo, drop off to chemo, you know, pick up, make a meal, pick up prescriptions, different little Facebook events within that group. And for me, watching it from the outside, I don't know if you guys have this problem, but you're in a lot of groups and you maybe don't see every update. It doesn't cross your feed, and so you miss stuff. And so literally, I think it was December or January, maybe even. Um, Shayna, I don't remember when it was, but I did a few things over the last year. It was most I think I took her to chemo once or twice or something. I did a couple things, not very much at all. And then one day, I guess I went and looked at the page and I realized there's a lot happening here, and it doesn't seem like there's enough help. And and I think that that happened to a lot of people in that group where they didn't see it, they didn't realize, I think I've mentioned this to Shayna, is it's like there were a lot of different things. There was, oh, I'm not like a close friend with Amy. I'm friends with her, but I'm not like a really close friend, so I'm thinking this isn't somebody else is probably doing this because she had, the other friends and stuff. But the fact of the matter is there's just a lot of reasons why people were unable to help. It could be anything, they just have this life where there's just not the time. It requires, a couple hours a week at least, to do something to help out. They were scared. Maybe they didn't think they were qualified. I think a lot of people, I know when I went through breast cancer, I had people that just shut off from me because
Yeah.
they couldn't deal with the thought of me dying. And so it was just better just to forget about me altogether. And I didn't fault them for that. Everybody deals with everything different. But I essentially woke up to this problem and I was like, Hey, so I remember messaging you or calling you or text. I don't remember what I did, Facebook. And I was just like, Shayna,
Yeah.
there's like stuff happening and it seems like there needs to be more help. I want to help. How do what can we do? And so I went and researched because I was like, is there like some kind of meal train? Is there because I don't think people are seeing the events. Like, how do we get people more
Mhm.
involved? And so we got that app. We found an app called Circle of. and it was like the perfect app when it was working, right? It's new. And so and their
Yeah.
development team was very helpful. And so we started using this, and it was a little bit more targeted. It would text you sometimes when there was a new event. So it was you know, a little bit more in your face and reaching people a little bit better. And so we added people to that. And so then it just became this constant battle of trying to fill the time slots of making sure that Amy was getting care, and it was really, really hard. And it's hard for a
Yeah.
lot of reasons. Like I said, it's hard to find people, reach people, I don't have people's personal phone numbers, just all that kind of stuff. So, and then whenever, we had probably a pool of about 4 or 5 people, maybe up to 10 if you count people who there were certain people who would specifically pick up, drop off, or do
Yeah.
certain things. And so we had a pool of about maybe 10 people or something. Um, but then whenever it got to the point when after Shayna had her surgery and I was trying to cover while Shayna was gone, which proved to be a much bigger task than I could handle. Shayna was doing so much, y'all. I was trying to just get someone there once a day for a couple of hours. That's all I was trying to do. Just try to get
Yep.
somebody there, and I was also trying to make sure that everybody who was helping with her care, I felt that it was really important to um, not do too much because it can be very overwhelming when especially there the last couple of weeks. You're on your feet the whole time. You're doing all the
Yep.
tasks around the house. She needs water. She needs this, that, the other, help to the bathroom, and the whole time, and it's exhausting, and it and
It is.
it's hard, and it's hard, especially if she's having a bad day. It's emotional. It's a lot, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that's the one thing I would tell anybody who has an opportunity to be a caregiver. Do it if you can, because it is such an important experience. I really feel that it is. But so I was just trying to get people there a couple of days a week. So the week before she passed away on that Tuesday, exactly a week before she passed away, I remember messaging Shayna and I was like, she can't roll over on her own. It's like she's declined so much in the last 2 weeks. I don't know what's happening. And
Yeah.
Shayna, I felt so bad because you were all the way, 3 hours away, and you weren't in a position to do anything. You were still healing from your
Yeah.
surgery. And Amy was in a lot of pain and, you know, whimpering, you know, and just didn't want to be anymore. And
Mhm.
it was at that point that, Sean and I was like, "I get hospice care." And so you started
Yep.
working on that. But then 2 days later, on that Thursday before she passed away, I went over. She sat up on her own, she rolled over on her own. She was still really weak and needed help to the bathroom and things like that. But her cognitive ability was really dropping a lot. Um, but she was a lot better. She wasn't in as much pain or anything like that. So I was
Mhm.
feeling very grateful about that. And I want to jump back to just the funny because I think it's so awesome. Her sense of humor, so freaking awesome. Um,
Yes.
because even that day, that Tuesday that was so bad and she was in so much pain, she said she said, "Will you just hug me?" And so, she could have told me to do just about anything and I would have done it. And so
Yep.
I rolled over and I just spooned her as big as I could, and I was just hugging her, and about, a minute later or something, she goes, "Okay, back off now." I thought it was so funny. That was just so how she was too. Like she never minced words. She's always gonna tell you exactly how she felt. But and she even did a couple of other funny things that night. And even in the pain that she was in, she had such a great sense of humor. And I did want to touch on the fact that you talk about that it's so important to talk about these kinds of things with the person who's sick. And she made it easy a lot of the times because she would just start talking about it. She would just say, like regarding, what she wanted happened with her body after she died and, you know,
Mhm.
ashes and different things like that. And she would just tell you and talk to you about it. And it kind of helped you to feel more comfortable and it made you feel okay, more okay about it, knowing that she was kind of more okay about it.
Right, she had a plan,
Yeah.
and she wanted to be able to continue to help people as much as she could. She did opt to donate her body to research so that they could do the biopsies on the particular cancers that she has so that maybe she can help with, making somebody else's journey in the future a little less painful or a little less long. She felt very blessed to be able to be part of a clinical trial. The drug that she was a clinical trial on did get approved, and it has helped a lot of people as far as slowing down the progression, at least for a while. Granted, it's not a cure, but it it's a step in the right direction. And for her, that was one of the really important things. Her entire life she's been a helper. That's what Amy does. I think that's part of why we got along so well, because I always want to fix what's broken and she just wants to help and make people happy. And she showed so much grace, because even as she was going through this horrible sickness herself, she was reaching out and doing small little things for other people on a regular basis. Stuff nobody asked her to do. She would just see a thing that could be done to brighten someone's day and she would just do it. And I think that that's a really important thing that we could all try to model after, is trying not to stay so focused on the negative. Of course, she had bad days, she had down days. There were plenty of days where it was, well, why is this happening to me? I don't understand. And the best answer I could give her was, I don't know, but you helped find a new drug. So that's a good thing. Maybe that's why you did it. Maybe that's why it was you. It was you so that, you'd get into this trial and you'd help somebody in the future. Because there are no good answers, but it's important to acknowledge the bad days too. You know, um, Being too positive can actually be harmful for the person who is suffering through the illness. Because while it might be an easier thing for the rest of us to brush off, because we can clock out off of our caregiver shift and go home, that person has to deal with this all the time. Every morning when they wake up, every night when they go to sleep. It's always there. It doesn't get to go away for them. And I feel like if more people knew how important it was just to acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the sickness, acknowledge the sadness, let them know that you're there and it's okay. I'll listen. You can talk to me about the downsides too. And you know what? When we're done crying, we're going to put on a stupid old movie. We're going to do something we love. We're going to eat the ice cream we're not supposed to have just because it tastes good. You know, um,
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think you're right. All that stuff is so true. I mean, and another thing is, talking about, why is it happening to her? And, I think that it's helped us to have these conversations, and open this up. I mean, literally, this whole experience with Amy has, you know, prompted us to plan to have a stage 4 focus group that includes palliative care people and caregivers and different people like that, and try to fulfill a need that I think is out there. I think that this is a lot of stuff that people don't talk about a lot, and meeting Stephanie and learning about what she does and being able to spread the word about that, I think is going to have a huge impact. And we're going to definitely do our part at Breast Cancer Can Stick It to, make a change and start filling this need and have those resources available for folks. Because I personally learned so much. I felt almost foolish that, I've been doing Breast Cancer Can Stick It for so long. And yeah, I've known people who've passed from breast cancer along the way, lots of people, but I've never been this close to it. And it's a totally different experience when you're this close to it and seeing this side of it. And it was a huge wake up call for me. And I want to make sure that, you know, everything that Amy went through, that piece that she showed me, that she taught me about how you can plan for the I don't know how to say it, the best death you could want. I mean, she just had it
Yeah.
so well planned. It was so peaceful, so beautiful, so
Mhm.
graceful, and you were a lot of that, Shane. I'm just telling you, you were a huge piece of that. I mean, you were like, "This is the way it's gonna happen. This is what she wants. This is the way it's gonna happen." And even in instructing me on the day to day, you gotta get her the crushed ice or whatever, bring her a straw, all that stuff like
Yep.
that. Like, and just making sure and like we all felt privileged, I think, to do all those things. And, Georgianne and Jessica and all those people, Gregor, so many people that helped, Mikey and Tammy, right? I'm getting their
Yep.
names right.
And
Okay.
Tracy. Yep.
Tracy, the caregiver's name was her
The
hospice. Sorry.
Oh, the hospice, that was Christina.
Christina. There was a
Yes.
lot of people, and
I
there's more than
I
I
had
could even
actually
mention.
gifted her my shirt. That's why I'm not wearing it. So,
Yeah, cool. I'm glad though. That's
oh,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, I felt it was appropriate to gift that to her. And I would say
Yeah.
that's one of the important things for the people who are suffering the illness is to make sure that they when they are selecting their power of attorney, they need to pick someone that they feel knows them well and is willing to fight for what they want because it's not necessarily easy to pick someone like outside of the family. The majority of the times the power of attorney for somebody who is suffering a chronic illness is going to be whoever the next of kin is. And while that may be the traditional method, it's not always the best method. I mean, for some people that works just fine. That's going to be different on an individual basis. But I think that people should understand that if you are asked to be the power of attorney for somebody, it's something that you should take seriously and put some thought into. And if you're not ready to fight for what they want, then you should let them know that because, when it comes down to their last days, the only thing that's important is making sure that they get what they want. That's the only thing that matters. The rest of us still have time, you know. Hopefully, we still have tomorrows, you know. We can change things. They don't have that time anymore. And so, it's definitely something to put some thought into. And it's a pretty big job. I won't lie. It is crazy overwhelming at times.
Right.
It has not been easy, but I love Amy enough that it's worth doing it her way.
Yep. And yeah, I think that's the big message here, man. Is these open conversations with the person you're caring for. It just makes it so much easier for you and for them. It's just all around way better. You touched a minute ago on how Amy would do stuff for people all the time, and I think you told me the other day, even for people she that really didn't deserve it. But I'm hearing stuff like every day from people um, that Amy did for them. Like when she was going through like the worst treatment with stage 4 metastatic triple negative breast cancer, like the worst of the worst, and she was sending gifts to other breast cancer survivors who are cancer free, who dealt with it this like way in the rearview
Yeah.
mirror. And I know Randy and Iris both have mentioned this. I saw something today where I don't know if you posted it or somebody posted it recently where um, somebody wanted a wig and Amy was like, well, what kind of wig does she want? Does she want it like this or like this? Because I'm going to send her a wig. So tell me, what she wants. And she sent her this cute little pink wig. And all the wigs that Amy got were really, really cool. And she sent them a similar one, and they were just posing in it and all excited, and
Hmm.
I had no idea she was doing all that stuff in the background, and it's
Yeah.
such an inspiration how she was.
Well, and that's part of the important conversations to have is there's a lot of things that didn't make it onto paper as far as, well, I want this thing to go to that person or whatnot. But we had enough conversations that, I knew what she wanted to do with her wigs. I know what she wants to do with her clothes. I know where she wants these things to go because Amy had a helpful heart. And so, the gifting of the wigs, that was something that I did to for one of her old Derby teammates whose mother is currently battling cancer. And we sat down to look through the wigs and, previously she had told me, oh, mom used to have this beautiful long blonde hair. And so I'm looking through Amy's wigs in the closet and I found one that's this beautiful long blonde hair. And I'm like, oh, well, she has to have this one, you know, let's put something fun in there too. And so we sat down to look, and the pink one was one of them. And when she was able to gift the wig to her mom before she left the house, I showed her how to properly put it on, because I had Amy teach me so that I'd be able to help her if it was ever necessary. So I took the time to show her, how to care for the wig, how to hang it up properly, how to put it onto her mom so that it would fit right and look good on her. And getting to see those pictures of her mom smiling and happy was priceless for me, and that's something that I know that Amy is absolutely smiling down on us for, because that is exactly what she intended to be done, you know.
Some well, I know that we've already gone over, and I knew we would a little bit,
Oh,
but it
whoops.
was it was no, hey, I would have stopped you if I was like hell bent on stopping, but I really love getting this opportunity to honor the memory of our and I know a lot of her friends are watching right now, and I want to thank everybody for joining tonight and helping us honor her memory and to share her legacy and also just the inspiration that she's been to, both of us. Um,
Mhm.
and so many things that we've learned from her, and from the experience in general, and what we're going to take away from that, and how we're going to make sure that other people learn from this too. So,
Definitely.
super
And
grateful
I'm
that
available if anybody has questions, just reach out. Might take me a little bit to get to you, but I'm always open to trying to help.
so awesome, dude. And I know that there's still a lot to be done. And as I've told you, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. And when Amy transitioned from this world to the new roller derby world in the sky, um, I had no plans of walking away. So anything that you need, help doing anything, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you.
I am blessed that she brought so many wonderful people into my life. It's been a lot easier to go through it on my side, being able to talk to people who also loved her and cared for her and supported her, because now those people are checking in on me. There's a handful in particular that are still checking on me, daily, every other day. Hey, how are you doing? Can I help? What do you need? And that's a really important thing too, because as a caregiver, now that she's gone, there is a huge hole, not just because I lost my friend, but also because it's a giant change in my routine. You wake up every day feeling like something is missing, because you've been taking care of this person for so long. Maybe, depending, for me, it's been about 2 years. So, that's a long time to have. And so it's weird to wake up and not be messaging her to see, hey, did you take your meds? Have you eaten today? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I find someone to come over and help? So just, keep that in mind. If you have friends that lose somebody, check on them. We're not always going to reach out, but check on them. It's important.
Very, very good point. Good advice, Shana. I'm so glad you could join tonight. And you guys, this all just like came together in like the last couple of weeks. It really just like fell together tonight. And I just think it's a perfect way to honor Amy. And again, to share the inspiration that she was to both you and I, and to share this important message about, helping friends that are ill, terminally ill. Um, it's just such an important time in their life, and I just can't say it enough, man. Whatever those people need, just do it for them. Whatever it is, you'll be happy that you did, and they'll be happy too. It's just the best of everything, so do everything you can. Again, thank you, Shana, so much for joining tonight. I'm sorry to cut you short, but maybe we can do
Yep.
a follow-up sometime later on and touch base, and, I'll certainly keep you posted as to how we're progressing with, any new programs or resources that we're adding as a result of all this because, I'm gonna make sure that it all makes a difference for sure.
Awesome. And thank you for having me.
That girl, have a great evening. Stay blessed.
You too.
Yeah. All right, everybody, give it up for Shayna. So rock and roll. I'm so glad she could join tonight. What a wonderful evening.